first is DC's Identity Crisis event. Almost 20 years after this dropped, it's still haunting DC fan forums and is generally one of the most hated storylines DC has ever published. There were lots of instances of very violent and violating acts done to and by characters that ended up putting such a bad taste in readers' mouths that it still lingers. The most referenced bad thing that happened during this story is probably what happened with Dr. Light and Sue Dibney. He hurt her really bad and then ended her, and to make it worse, the Justice League decided the best thing to do in that situation was to wipe it from everyone's minds and alter Dr. Light's personality so he would be less threatening. There were also quite a few deaths that were kind of just like glossed over, and in a less serious vein, there was also just a lot of continuity issues. Overall, 0 out of 10. When the Hail Hydra Captain America moment first happened, I was ready to hit my head against a wall, as were many of you, I'm guessing. That single panel rocked the fandom in a way I had not seen in all my 23 years. The ever patriotic symbol for everything right and just. Suddenly saying Hail Hydra, the world is upside down. Now we know that it wasn't Steve Rogers True, but Flag Smasher, a Cap from another timeline, but at the time, we didn't know that. We thought it was the Right Honorable 616 Cap. It was truly the most out of character and out of pocket thing Captain America could have done, and if they had left it at that, it would have totally ruined the character forever. Eventually, the actual Cap came back and takes care of business, thank goodness. Now that it's over, it did make for an interesting story and introduced interesting characters, but at the time, Marvel fans were in the trenches. To this day, some fans still hate the whole situation, calling it clickbait at its best and a disaster at its worst. Palpatine reviving, despite all odds, has had Star Wars fans up in arms since the last movie came out. Truly, what is Palpatine's secret? How has he lived this long? Dermatologists hate him. The entire sequel trilogy is an enjoyable watch, as long as you don't focus too much on the plot holes. Impossible task when Palpatine has perished 5 times. First, he was thrown down a chasm. Next, it was switching clone bodies. Then he was fallen into a force storm. Next, he was force trapped. And finally, death by lightning. But truly, bringing Palpatine back for the sequel trilogy was rough. It was barely explained, it was via clone, and as a watcher, his apparent death doesn't really mean all that much when he clearly has a live again punch card. The one good thing that came out of the mess, Poe's very tired, somehow Palpatine returned line. In those 3 short words, he conveyed all the frustration and exhaustion fans were feeling. Zornito's identity theft turn identity fraud is up next. There's a love-hate relationship when it comes to Zornito. To explain very simply, Marvel introduced a new character, Zorn. He infiltrated the X-Men, turned some mutants against them, and then destroyed a city and fatally injured teammates. At the end of this storyline, it was revealed that Zorn was actually Magneto. There had been hints to this throughout the series. The mutant abilities matched up. It was clear where this was going. However, Marvel needed Magneto. Magneto did things that would have made him irredeemable to many fans, which is not good for him. Plus, editors liked Zorn. So, as a fix, Marvel retconned the Magneto pretending to be Zorn thing and made it Zorn pretending to be Magneto pretending to be Zorn. He did that really complicated gymnastics routine because he was connected to Sublime, and this was supposed to get mutant hatred going. However, remember, they wanted to actually bring Zorn in, but he died in the final battle. To fix that, it was established that he conveniently had a twin brother. We get some great characters from this, but at the cost of a truly confusing sequence of events. Next, the destruction of Superman's planet. The OG story up until 2018 was Krypton's core either ran out of energy or the sun collapsed on itself, causing the planet to go down with it. A strong commentary on how a planet's population should pay attention to the signs nature gives us before it's too late. Then 2018 rolls around and DC decides to change it. The idea of an advanced race ignoring the fall of its own planet despite a small few trying to warn them, well, now that does not relate to the human race at all, so let's retcon it and make the destruction of the planet due to a big monster instead of the fault of its own people. Rolgozar was the monster. He was created by Jor-El with the intention to destroy Krypton. The monster believed that Krypton and its people were a threat to the universe, so they had to go. Zar was introduced and battled Superman and Supergirl quite a bit, but many readers say the fights and monster character just wasn't compelling. In the end, he did just end up in permanent stasis, so he pretty much is just known for the reason the Super's planet exploded. The character seemed to have a lot of potential that was just never realized. Overall, many DC fans are not crazy about Zar and agree that the character was an odd addition, and some say even embarrassing. Moving on to the retcons of Charles Smith! Charles Smith is the Wolverine of Riverdale, retcon after retcon. Charles Smith is the half-brother of Betty Cooper and Jughead Jones. At first, viewers were led to believe this character named Chick was Charles. However, it was revealed that he was actually Charles's ex-friend, Chick. Chick and Charles fought one day and he ended Charles. When Betty and her mom showed up looking for her brother, Chick decided to pretend to be Charles. But then, Charles wasn't dead, he lived. Chick went to jail and Charles joined the FBI. But then, surprise, turns out he and Chick were actually dating, and they did actually fatally injure someone. So then, Charles goes to jail, eventually the two escape, break into the Cooper family home to try and get married in the living room. Chick doesn't make it out of that alive, and then Charles, surprise, has a deadly disease. And then, surprise, part 2, he just recovers, and that's literally where his story ends. I know that was crazy, but tell me superhero publishers have not done something similar? Who ships Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn? People who deserve jail time. Sins Past introduced one of Marvel's greatest sins ever, featuring the relations between Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn. This retcon is gross for a lot of reasons. Truly, Gwen, why did you do it? Gwen ended up secretly having twins from those relations, and those kids eventually caused a lot of problems for Spider-Man since they were led to believe he was their dad that abandoned them. This was later retconned out of existence, literally, thank God. The twins were clones and everyone's memories had just been altered. Was it worth Marvel fans suffering? I don't think so. The New 52 created a lot of retcons everyone hated, but my least favorite was Mr. Freeze falls in love with Nora Fields, a completely random woman frozen by her parents in the 40s. He literally didn't know her at all before she went under. It's so frustrating because Mr. Freeze's love for his wife is what makes you connect to the character. Sure, Mr. Freeze might be a villain, but his love for his wife, the wife he had before she was frozen, humanizes him. It also makes you care about Mr. Freeze and understand his motivations. This retcon just made him really creepy and weird. As someone who adores Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, I really did not appreciate this. Luckily, Rebirth fixed it. Alright, the Nightcrawler retcon, everybody seems to hate his mess of a family tree. As it stands now, his father is Mystique, his mother is Destiny, his fake dad is Azazel, and his deceased stepdad is Baron Wagner. Nightcrawler was always supposed to be Mystique and Destiny's child, but at the time his story was being written, the world wasn't ready for that, so Marvel threw in fix-its until today when they ripped off all those band-aids. Originally, Mystique was the mom, she had a pregnancy belly and everything. She was married to Baron Wagner, but had an affair with Azazel and had their baby. Today though, this is wrong but also right. Mystique did have an affair with Azazel, but her true love was Destiny. Mystique and Destiny wanted a child. Mystique, because she is a gene shaper shapeshifter, used Azazel as the base to mimic the anatomy she needed to be the father. Nightcrawler and Azazel were led to believe they were father and son because Azazel wants to destroy humanity and the Earth, but making him think he was Nightcrawler's father would give him a connection to the very thing he wanted to destroy, hopefully making him want to destroy it less. To keep everything on track, Mystique shapeshifted a fake pregnancy belly and then had her memory erased afterwards. Established X-Men writer Chris Claremont wanted to introduce the concept a long time ago. But maybe even more hated than Nightcrawler's family dynamic was the forced divorce of Spider-Man and Mary Jane. Spider-Man One More Day is the type of comic that many Marvel fans would use as kindling for the fire. In Spider-Man One More Day, Mephisto wants Peter and MJ's marriage. They do have one of the greatest love stories ever, but it's still a weird choice. The reason Peter lets this happen is because in the comic, Aunt May is really sick on death's door, so Peter is desperate to help her get better. It's not like it's surprising he feels this way, but instead of having a really interesting arc about Peter learning to deal with the grief of losing this important family member, Marvel decided to go with Mephisto marriage stealing solution. Eventually, an actual motivation for the choice was discovered. He had a vision that Spider-Man's daughter was going to take him down in the future, so he figured that if he broke up Peter and MJ's marriage, the daughter would never be born and he would be fine. Good plan, that did end up failing anyways. Another reason why this choice was made, to let writers explore Peter's character in ways they might not have been able to if he were married to MJ, but that's it, that's all. Let us know what you think. Bye!